Now let's talk about what happens beyond that opening moment, because the ripple effects of Amy's decision are going to touch every single person on that ranch. And I think episode 1 is going to spend just as much time on the people around her as it does on Amy herself. Jack Bartlett has spent 19 seasons holding this family together, and if you've been paying attention to how season 19 wrapped up, you already know Jack and Lou have finally started loosening their grip on the ranch. That's not just a small character beat. That's the show quietly preparing to hand the reins over to the next generation, and I have a strong feeling season 20 opens with Jack facing something he's never really had to face before, the reality of stepping back. After decades of being the backbone of Heartland, watching everyone else lean on him for every decision, I think this premiere shows us a version of Jack who is finally, quietly, learning what it means to let go. Not because he's forced to, but because he's earned the right to rest. And because deep down, he knows the ranch is finally in good hands. Lou's story is going to run right alongside that. She spent years buried in ranch responsibilities, stretched between family, business, and everything Heartland demands from her, and now that pressure has genuinely started to lift. I think the premiere gives us a softer, more present version of Lou, someone who finally gets to just be a mother and a sister again, instead of constantly holding the ranch's finances and future together with both hands. It might not be the flashiest storyline of the episode, but if you've watched this family long enough, you know these are the moments that hit the hardest. Watching Lou breathe for the first time in years is exactly the kind of quiet, emotional payoff this show has built its entire reputation on. Then there's Georgie, and honestly, I think her storyline might be the most heartbreaking part of this premiere. She earned a stunning win with Phoenix in the season 19 finale, proving once and for all that she's not just Amy's shadow anymore, she's her own writer, her own trainer, her own person. And right after that win, she's handed an opportunity to train overseas at a stable that could take her career to a level Heartland Ranch simply can't offer her. If season 20 opens with Georgie preparing to leave, I think we're going to see one of the rawest goodbyes this show has ever written. This isn't a villain leaving, this isn't someone being pushed out. This is a girl who grew up on that ranch, who healed alongside Amy, who became family in every sense of the word, choosing to chase a dream that pulls her away from the only home she's ever really known. And I think the timing of that departure, landing in the very same episode as Amy's engagement, is not accidental. The writers are giving us a full circle moment, one relationship beginning just as another prepares to change forever. Caleb, Peter, and Mitch are all confirmed to return as well, which tells me the extended Heartland family isn't going anywhere, even as the core story shifts. I expect Caleb's presence to lean into the rodeo world again, especially with Jack stepping back and needing someone to carry that torch. And I wouldn't be surprised if season 20 spends real time developing him beyond the comic relief role he's often been given, especially this late in the show's run. Now here's the part that's going to sting a little. There's growing speculation, not confirmed outright, but strongly hinted at by multiple entertainment outlets, that season 20 could be the final season of Heartland. 20 seasons is an enormous milestone, and shows rarely hit that number and keep going indefinitely. At the same time, Amber Marshall herself has said she hopes the show continues for another decade, which tells me even the cast isn't fully certain how this ends. What I do believe is that the writers are treating this season like it matters, like it's building towards something bigger than a typical season arc, whether that's a proper send-off or a triumphant new chapter. Either way, episode 1 is not going to feel like just another premiere. It's going to feel like the beginning of the end, or the beginning of something Heartland has never fully explored before. So, where does that leave us heading into this premiere? I genuinely believe episode 1 of season 20 is going to open with Amy saying yes to Nathan, but I don't think it's going to be a simple, easy yes. I think we're going to watch her sit with that decision for a moment, remembering everything Heartland Ranch has meant to her, every memory tied to that land, to her mother, to Ty, to every single person who shaped who she became, standing in that field. And I think that hesitation isn't going to be about doubting Nathan. It's going to be about Amy finally accepting that moving forward doesn't erase what came before it. That's always been the emotional heartbeat of this show, and if the writers are as smart as they've proven to be over 19 seasons, they're not going to let Amy's happiest moment happen without acknowledging everything it took to get her there. I also think we're going to see the very first hints of change to Amy and Nathan's living situation in this premiere. There have been quiet suggestions floating around about Nathan considering a move, and if that thread gets pulled in episode 1, I think Amy is going to be faced with an impossible question almost immediately after saying yes. Does she stay rooted in the only home she's ever known, or does she follow this new chapter wherever it leads her? Knowing this show, I don't think that decision gets resolved in a single episode. I think it becomes the emotional thread pulling us through the entire season, episode after episode, right alongside everything happening with Georgie's departure, and Jack finally stepping back from the ranch he's protected his whole life. And that's really what makes this premiere feel different from every other Heartland season opener. This isn't just Amy's story anymore. This is an entire family standing at a crossroads at the exact same time. Jack learning how to rest, Lou learning how to breathe, Georgie learning how to leave, and Amy, the woman who has spent her whole life healing broken things, finally learning how to let herself be happy without guilt standing in the way. If even half of what's been building toward this premiere plays out the way it looks like it will, episode 1 alone is going to leave fans an emotional wreck before the opening credits even finish rolling. I keep coming back to that title from the finale, Forgiveness, because I don't think that word was only about Nathan's sister, and I don't think it was only about repairing one relationship. I think it was the writers quietly telling us exactly what this entire season is going to be about. Forgiving the past, forgiving change, forgiving yourself for moving forward when part of you still feels like staying still would somehow honor everything you lost. That is heavy, emotional territory, and it's exactly the kind of storytelling that's kept this family in our lives for 2 decades. Whether this turns out to be the final season or simply the start of a new era, I think Heartland is about to remind everyone why this show has meant so much to so many of us for so long. So now I want to hear from you. Do you think Amy says yes in that very first episode? Do you think Georgie actually leaves for that opportunity overseas? Or do you think something pulls her back to the ranch at the last second? And after everything this family has been through, do you think season 20 is finally where Heartland's story comes to an end? Or do you think there's still more road ahead for the Bartlett-Fleming family? Drop your predictions in the comments below, because I want to know exactly what you think is coming. If this breakdown gave you chills, or if you're just as invested in this family as I am, do me a favor and hit that like button before you go. It genuinely helps this channel more than you know. And if you haven't already, make sure you're subscribed with notifications turned on, because the moment any new details about season 20 drop, I'll be right here breaking it all down for you first. This ranch, this family, this story, it's meant something to all of us for 20 years, and I don't want any of us to miss a single moment of what's coming next. Thank you for riding through this one with me, and I'll see you in the next video. Heartland Season 20, Episode 1 is about to change everything you thought you knew about Amy Fleming, and after digging through everything CBC has quietly confirmed, I can tell you this premiere is going to hit differently than any episode in this show's 20-year history. Because here's the thing nobody's talking about yet. Season 20 is real. It's not a rumor, it's not a fan theory, it's officially happening. Filming already wrapped in Calgary, and CBC has locked in a premiere date this fall. But the real story isn't just that the show is coming back. The real story is what Amy Fleming is walking into. And if the whispers coming out of production are true, this might be the most emotional season opener Heartland has ever produced. Let's rewind for a second, because you need to understand exactly where we left off before I tell you where this is going. Season 19 closed out with an episode called Forgiveness. And if that title alone doesn't already tell you something heavy is coming, I don't know what will. In that finale, Nathan got down on one knee and asked Amy to marry him. The screen cut to black before we ever got an answer. 20 years of watching this family, and CBC had the nerve to leave us hanging on the one question every single fan has been screaming into their pillow about for months. Does she say yes? Does she hesitate? Does something happen that changes everything before she even gets the chance to answer? Now, based on everything I've pieced together, I don't think season 20 is going to waste any time dancing around that question. I think the premiere opens directly in the aftermath of that proposal, and I think the writers are going to use Amy's answer as the emotional core of the entire season. But here's where it gets interesting, and here's why I brought up that title again, Forgiveness. This show has never randomly chosen an episode title. every single time Heartland has used a word like that, it's meant something is being repaired or something is finally being let go. And if you think back to everything Amy has carried since her mother died, since she lost Ty, since she rebuilt Heartland Ranch from nothing more times than any of us can count, forgiveness for Amy doesn't just mean forgiving Nathan for asking her to move on. It means Amy finally forgiving herself for being happy again. And that's exactly why I believe this premiere is going to open with Amy saying yes. Not because it's the easy choice, but because everything in her arc this past season has been building toward her finally letting go of the guilt she's held onto for years. Nathan isn't some outsider who forced his way into this family. He earned it. He showed up when the ranch needed him. He built a real relationship with Lindy, one that Amy has watched grow from awkward distance into something that looks a lot like a real father figure stepping in. And when his own sister crossed a line, Nathan didn't protect her out of loyalty. He protected Amy and the ranch instead. That's not a small detail. That's the writers telling you, loud and clear, this man is not a placeholder character. He's the future. But saying yes is only step one. And I don't think the premiere stops there. Because here's something that's been confirmed that most fans haven't connected yet. Georgie, Amy's own protege, the girl who basically became her successor at Heartland, has received an offer to train and compete at a stable overseas. If Georgie takes that offer and everything points toward her taking it, that means Amy isn't just saying yes to a marriage. She's saying yes to watching her entire world shift underneath her at the exact same time. The person she trained, the person she saw herself in, might be leaving the ranch just as Amy is stepping into a completely new chapter of her own life. That is not a coincidence in a show like this. That is the writer setting up one of the most bittersweet openings this series has ever attempted. Joy and loss arriving in the same episode, maybe even the same conversation.